Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Maki. I'm the current chair of the San Mateo County Democratic Party. I want to welcome you all today to our last session of the candidate training. On behalf of the Leadership Committee, thank you all for joining over the past few weeks. We've enjoyed providing these tips and advice for running for public office, and we wish you all the very best. The Leadership Committee members include Ligia Zuniga, Robert Bernardo, Bill James, Katie Bush, Alicia Aguirre, Gina Papan, Nick Gonzalez, and myself, Karen Maki. Special thanks to the committee for their work in organizing these training sessions. If you responded to Robert's email, you will receive your certificate of completion in a couple days. The Zoom meeting videos will be made available as well. Be on the lookout for a link to the video library. The videos will also be available on the San Mateo and Santa Clara County Democratic Party websites. You'll receive a survey, and we would like it if you could please fill that out, because we always like to improve the way we do things. So this is the last session, as I mentioned. During today's training, our panelists will talk about how they decided what issues to include in their campaign and how they developed their position. Our panelists are Kalimah Salahuddin, who is the Jefferson Union High School District Trustee, Diane Papan, who's Assembly Member for District 21, and Christina Corpus, the San Mateo County Sheriff. So each panelist will talk for 5 minutes, and then we will open up the floor to all of you to ask questions via, either putting a question in chat or raising your hand. So our first speaker is Kalimah Salahuddin. She currently serves as the Vice President of the Jefferson Union High School District Board of Education. She's the past president of San Mateo County School Boards Association, where she served for 2 years, and she continues to serve as an area representative. At the county level, she served on the COVID-19 Recovery Council and founded the REACH Coalition, and she's also serves on the Board of Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. She is employed at XLS as the DEI Community Programs Manager and as the 3 adults. Kalimah, please take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and wanting to step up into leadership roles in your community. Again, my name is Kalimah Salahuddin. I'm the board president for the Jefferson Union High School District. This is my 3rd term, 12th year. I am not running for re-election, so I'm glad there's so many people looking to come in behind me. It's been 12 really great, impactful, fun, slightly nightmarish years. So for this particularly, and I will just jump right in, I ran because I was a mom of my oldest son has special needs. He's autistic. And I started going to school board meetings and became interested in running because I wanted to understand why it was so difficult for him to get the same level of education as his twin sisters who were younger than him were getting. His sisters were going through the Pacifica School District and they were having a fabulous educational experience. While my son, it was constant challenges. And so that's what got me originally engaged. But the decision to run, for most women, you have to be asked. And I was asked multiple times to run, and I finally decided to run. I never saw myself as someone in elected office. And when I finally did run, I saw that it was exactly where I was supposed to be. Like, I was like, oh, I found my place. I found my home. This is exactly where I should be. And when people come up to me and tell me, I'm interested in running for office and what should I do, my first question is, depending on the seat, like school board, city council, commission, have you ever been to any of the meetings? And I'm so surprised at how many people tell me no. So that's one of the first places to learn about the seat that you're going to be in, is attending the meetings. you can watch a lot of meetings virtually, but I would also, and to utilize that, but I would also emphasize going in person, because being in the room is a completely different feel than watching it on television. I would also visit the website of the body that you're looking to run for. There's lots of information there. And not just the information that's there, but also they're communicating a lot by what's not there. So looking at their budget for me, one of my educational heroes always says, the budget is a statement of values. What are they spending their money on? How much time are they dedicating to highlighting or communicating about different things on their website? What information, how transparent are they on their website? You can learn a lot there. And then the last thing I will say is campaigning. I'm one of the few people, I love to campaign. I love knocking on doors and talking to people, and trying to talk and visit areas that normally don't have representation, either in office or where people will say, well, people normally don't vote in that area. Those are the places that I like to go to. And when I'm knocking on doors, talking less about myself and really trying to listen to what they want to share with me. So I had so many good conversations when I ran for election and knocked on a door and just said, I'm running for school board. What do you need out of your school board? And it really helped inform me and make me more than a one issue candidate. Because like I said, when I went in specifically about special education and the intersection of special education and having a son who is a Black male. But in talking to so many different parents and community members in my school district, and we're at large, meaning we're not by district, so it's a huge district. City coverage wise, it's Daly City, Pacifica, Colma, Broadmoor, and Brisbane. Really hearing that from my Brisbane parents that they felt underrepresented in our school district because there's no school in Brisbane and there were no school board members from Brisbane. Learning from my Daly City residents about how they felt like there was only one school option and that Jefferson wasn't a good school. Hearing from my Pacifica residents about the fear that we were going to possibly close one of the schools and not their school, and the constant competition between the two schools. Hearing from all of the parents about inadequacies in teacher quality, inadequacies in the level of activity that we offered in extracurricular activity, food quality, safety, you name it. And then one of the other things I really learned is that learning the role of my job. So a lot of people confuse school board members with superintendents. We are not the superintendent. The superintendent runs the school. We give direction. And so when I'm taking in this information, really listening, but not promising what I can do, because when I first ran for election, I didn't know what I was going to be able to do, just wanting to take as much information in. And as it became more educated, ensuring that when I talk to voters, I'm talking about the reality of the role that I'm in and not aspirationally. It's good for me personally to have aspiration and I have goals, but I don't want to promise something that is not within the purview for me to do. And so, especially for city council members, when city council members promise things for school districts, people confuse who's in charge of what. And that's always one of the things I try to do the most, is just making sure that I'm in my lane and not causing more confusion with voters when I'm out on the campaign trail. So doing a lot of research into your role and what do you have control over and what you don't. And the tools that are available to you. I'm talking a lot about my school board member role, but policy is a huge tool that's in our purview that a lot of school board members don't pay attention to. We have so much control over how the school is run by writing and editing the policy and making sure that I inform parents about that. And then last, and the last thing I'll say is, one of my phrases is, happy parents don't come to school board meetings. a lot of the interaction that I have or that you'll see at the actual meeting is a small micro set of the huge constituency that I represent. And it's a privilege to get to our school board meetings at times. You have to be able to have daycare if you're a parent in our district. You have to not be working at that time. You have to have transportation to get there. So while I take a lot of information from school board meetings or from whatever organizational meeting that your municipality may have, I also urge people to go out into the community and try to hear from the people who don't have access to those meetings and to learn as much as you can from those who day-to-day circumstance doesn't allow them the privilege to attend those meetings. Because a lot of what happens in our county and in society is dictated by those that have the privilege to go to a meeting and to hang out for an hour or two. And so how do we give voice and how do we learn from our constituents who are vital to our community and help hold it up, but don't have the time to do the traditional things or have access to the traditional methods of contacting those of us that are lucky enough to run for office. And so with that, I will stop because 5 minutes goes fast and I'll turn it back over to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kalimah. And so our next speaker is Assemblymember Diane Papan. She was first elected to the California State Assembly in November 22. She represents the 21st Assembly District, which includes the entire Bayside of San Mateo County, from Brisbane to East Palo Alto. And as a member of the State Assembly, Diane is focused on investing in strategies to address climate change, as well as water quality, women's health, accessible and quality healthcare services, gun safety, affordable housing, and access to quality schools. Prior to her election to the State Assembly, Diane Papan served as the mayor and city council member for the city of San Mateo. She is a native of San Mateo County, raised in both Daly City and Millbrae. She earned a BA in political science from the University of California, Los Angeles, from the University of California, Hastings College of Law. Assemblymember Papan, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you. And I just want to begin by acknowledging your desire to participate in the democratic process. As we all know, it's not a spectator sport, and it does take a lot to put yourself out there to try to run for office. And I just want to compliment you for your interest and express my gratitude for it. I thought I would start to dovetail a bit on what's already been said. I don't want to get too repetitive, but some of the notes that I had were similar. The first thing is know the scope of the job. You're not going to solve world peace by being on the city council. And I think the public is looking to you to really address what you can do within the scope of the job. And so I would say, first and foremost, start by knowing the scope of the job. And you can find that out on the website. You can find it out by going to meetings. There are many ways that you can come to an understanding of what one could accomplish with the particular job that you're seeking. And part and parcel of that, of course, is knowing what does the community want you to do in connection with that job. And sometimes you might have some thoughts that you might want to throw out, but a lot of it is listening. And a lot is really paying attention to what is important to people. What are their values? The next thing is, of course, know where the money comes from and know how the money gets spent. There are a lot of people that run for office without a clear understanding of the fiscal constraints that are on the body that you might be trying to run for. And how they spend their money is certainly should be an expression of the community's values. And so take the time to know the values as you learn to know the scope of the work and what you can do in that scope. But then look at the money quotient. And does the money quotient reflect the values that you're hearing about from the community? Is the current folks, are they being prudent with the money? Also know what are the avenues by which you could raise more money. Nothing happens in politics or elected office without the God almighty dollar. So you really have to have a good understanding. And I think the public deserves that. And they want to hear from you and know that if you have an idea for, I don't know, say a new park or affordable housing, you've got to really know how it is that you can make that happen and accomplish that goal. So have some fiscal savvy. I think the public deserves it. I think it's something that people often kind of overlook when they're thinking about running for office. A lot of times it's like, well, these are my values, so I'm just going to run. And I think you really, really have to be well in tuned with the scope of the job and then how you can get things done. And then the third thing I would say is that less important is, the three things that you want to accomplish. What is more important is that people have an understanding of how you're going to approach problems. Because let me tell you something, it could be 3 issues today, 3 issues, different issues the next day, and 3 issues 2 months from now. So I really feel like one of the things that the public must know from you and what you can really, you should convey is how do you approach problems? For me, I was an attorney for a long time, so I feel like I've got a good analytical mind. I also feel I have an open mind, and I want to hear 360 degrees on any issue so that I've got a clear understanding of where people fall. Do they have an understanding of what it would take to get that done? Is that in the purview? Said to not to give false expectations, and that comes up time and again. And you have to be very careful because people will expect things from you, and if you promised and you can't all of a sudden live up to those promises, I don't think that's necessarily fair to the public. So spend some time really understanding, and so that you can serve with an open mind and one that will hear all points of view, and be analytical. And then finally, for me, I always say to people, I will serve with empathy, because I really feel like you've got to listen and you've got to really put yourself in someone else's shoes and know that source of aggravation. Is there something we can do about it? Is it within our ability, whether it be financially, whether I can get the votes on the city council? That's a body of 5. And with the Brown Act, I'm sure most of you know, you can only talk to one other person so that we have open and transparent government. And so you've got to figure out how to get the votes. That's incredibly important. Nancy Pelosi didn't get where she was without being able to vote count. And she's purportedly the master of it. So really that takes time then to get to know your colleagues. What makes them tick? What's important to them? Do you think you can persuade them that what's going to happen in this neighborhood, while one neighborhood might be impacted, it really is important for the whole city? Like in my city, we have some flood and drainage issues, and we have hills and we have low-lying ground. So the low-lying ground folks are really, really impacted by water issues. But the water comes from up the hill, so it's all of our problem. Or all of our issue, I should say, and something that certainly on the city council we had to address, and we continue, local governments in particular continue to address it. Likewise, now I'm one of 80 in the state legislature. You got to really get to know people, and it's 79 other folks, and you got to keep them straight. You got to know what their district is. You got to know what's important to their district. Likewise, you have to spend some time, hopefully, that they get to know you. And my district is vastly different than the San Joaquin Valley, vastly different. I was there yesterday looking at water issues, and I kept thinking to myself, how do I get my suburban folks to understand that we have to recharge our groundwater so we still have some ag to make this the 5th largest economy in the world? And so the challenge is there of how we bring all of us into the fold and all of us under the umbrella that is this fantastic state. The challenges are there, but I think listening and really being empathetic and open-minded is half the battle, half the battle. I dropped my earplugs as I was waving my hands around. Sorry about that. But those are some of the things that I think are most important. Know the job, know the job, and know what people want from that job. And then the second part is know the money, know how it's spent, know where you might find more. wonder and check whether it's being spent commensurate with the values of the community. And then the last thing is let people know how you were served, how you will serve. And that can be any number of ways. You know, you will have to assess what your characteristics are. And I think that's far more important than picking 3 issues and saying, here's what I've identified with. I think people need a comfort level that you're going to be able to address whatever needs come. You think we saw COVID coming? No. But how did we handle COVID? And what did it mean for all of our residents, whether they were small businesses, whether they were residents who were living, in a situation where there were many people under one roof. Oh, that was a sheer way, and a quick way of COVID spreading. Or what about people that were essential workers, and how were their kids going to be at home and do distance learning? I'm enormously proud that my city at the time, when I was on the city council, we were very nimble, and we used our rec centers, which were not doing any programming at the time, for our underserved residents. So if they had to go to work, they could drop their kid off at the rec center, do their distance learning, have after-school tutoring. It was a way of saying nimble. And I'm so proud that we were able to be nimble in very precarious times. So those are sort of the big takeaways, if I could impart them to you. And again, just thinking about it and having the desire to serve, I commend you. And I thank you for spending all the time that you did on this training. I was involved previously in participating in the curriculum in other iterations of this program. And I hope you get a lot out of it. And it causes you to not only ponder running, but you actually do run.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember Papan. Our last speaker is going to be the Sheriff, Christina Corpus. She began with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office as a correctional officer in 2002 and worked her way up to captain and then chief of police before being sworn in as the 26th Sheriff of San Mateo County in January 2023. Sheriff Corpus is the first female sheriff in San Mateo County and one of the first Latina sheriffs in California. Sheriff Corpus advocates for more effective, humane, and responsive community policing through transparency, integrity, and stakeholder involvement. She supports law enforcement professionals and is committed to reestablishing community engagement to rebuild community trust through inclusion and collaboration. Sheriff Corpus's primary focus is on public safety. Her professional accomplishments include a Master of Science degree in law enforcement and public safety leadership. Sheriff Corpus, please begin. The floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me today, and I'd like to thank my fellow panelists for their public service, and to you all for your interest in serving. I too attended, these courses, and I really got a lot out of it. So I grew up in the Sheriff's Office organization, and I never thought that I would run for any public office. So I worked for 3 different sheriffs, and we needed some change, and the only way that was going to happen if somebody was going to run. And I knew nothing about running for office, and so I decided to run. And I was working at the time for my boss, so as you can imagine, it was very challenging, but I wanted to change. I wanted to institute change in our profession, within the organization. So I decided to run. And what I can tell you is that it's not an easy task to run, especially being a first timer. But what I can tell you is that if you have the passion and you want to make change, don't be afraid to do that. I either had the option of retiring or running for office. And I thought if I retired and kind of hung my hat up, I would have always wondered, what if? And so, I decided to run. And what I found was that in the beginning, it was super lonely. I would go to events and nobody wanted to talk to me or take photos with me. And I just had to keep putting myself out there, and then talking to people. So what I can tell you, I think my fellow panelists have really covered a lot. But what I can tell you is that I spent a lot of time listening to constituents, being wherever I could be, where people could either hear me or talk to me, and I can listen to what their concerns were. And that's how I learned that, it's a broad spectrum of what people's concerns are, because the sheriff's office or the county, there's different areas. You could be in, Atherton, and then you could be in the North Fair Oaks area. And the issues for constituents are going to be very, very different. And so really knowing what is important to your constituents, and also, being ready to put yourself out there and knowing that you're not going to be able to make everybody happy, but having a balance. And for me, it was really understanding that in law enforcement, traditionally, we're slow to change, but the world has changed, and there's different expectations of us. And, knowing that, there have been mistakes made, and how do we rectify those? And so I really worked hard at listening to people and knowing what the various issues were. And again, trying to build a team, the right team. And sometimes you make mistakes along the way, and that's okay, as long as you learn from them and you keep going. So for me, it was really the people, and really getting to know them and listening to them is what really helped me in my campaign. But it is really difficult. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to ask for money, because if you don't have money, you can't put all the publications out there. You can't, do the polling, and that's really insightful. So for me, it was really a balancing act, a lot of hard work. But if you have the passion to serve your community and you want to affect change, you really have to have the want to do it. And then again, put yourself out there. And that's not always easy. And it's okay to, like I said, to make a mistake, but as long as you, keep going forward and knowing what those issues are. I created a PowerPoint, which I'll share with the group, and it's really kind of the lessons learned and what I did in my campaign. But what I always did as well is campaigning, and especially if you have an opponent, and especially an incumbent, it could get ugly. And I always just tried to stay very respectful and not go down a path that would put you in a bad light. And so I just continued to respond to the voters, and really not respond to the negativity that was being put out there by my opponent. So with that, I know that some of you may have some questions, but what I can tell you is that don't ever give up. I had a 3% chance of winning, and I went in with knowing that. But I really fought hard, and I fought till the end. And so I just want to tell you that, don't think that it's not possible, because as long as you put in the passion, the hard work, the grit, you can do it. And so as long as you believe in what you do and wanting to make those changes, and especially for the constituents, and, like I said, it's not easy, but it's so gratifying when you can make those changes and you are elected.
Thank you all very much. And so now it's time for Q&A. And so you can raise your hand if you have a question, or put it in chat. And I don't see any questions in chat so far. So maybe I'll ask a couple questions, and just, add your questions as you think of them into chat, or raise your hand. Okay, so one of my questions is, So how did you decide on what issues you need to take a position on? Maybe you might tell us one issue and how you came to develop your position, how that came about. Assemblymember Papan, or would you like to respond?
Sure. I think part and parcel is knowing what's important to people, and doing your homework. And part of that is finding out what's important to people, but also going to the meetings and figuring out what issues are really coming. I mean, for me, in a past life, I litigated a lot of public works projects, and I knew that the city had a lot of infrastructure needs that were not being addressed. And in the last century, people that lived around the 20s and 30s had the foresight to build our roads and to build our sewers. And I knew that they were coming to the end of their useful life, and people weren't really focused on it. So that was one of the things. I knew that municipal government is responsible for those things. I knew that I had some understanding of how they get done. And so that was one of the things. My tagline when I first ran for city council was I was going to make sewers sexy. And I'm here to tell you that the city's in the middle of a $1 billion wastewater treatment plant replacement. And I was involved in the financing of it. And, we can continue to flush our toilets. And I find that tremendously sexy.
Yes, so you were successful, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Someone else? Sheriff Corpus, it's
Sure, I can go ahead. So for me, I have, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Office of the Sergeants. And so when I went out and heard what the challenges were and what the changes that people, wanted, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't going to make everybody happy. And, transparency is super important for people and change. And so I really had to take a chance and know that I wasn't going to make maybe, some of our workforce happy, because I wanted to make some changes that pull back on some things and change some policies that maybe needed to be changed, and weren't in the past. And because we've had some tragedies. And so for me, it was again about the people. And, I think about people that have lost family members, and I think about if that was my child. And so that's how I weighed it out. And like I said, it's kind of a balancing act, but it is what we needed to do. And so it's challenging, but I again go back to not only putting myself as the sheriff, but also as a parent, as a mom, and as a community member. And that's how I make my decisions.
Kalimah, do you have a comment about this?
Sure. I mean, I think I have a guiding star, which is student educational outcomes. And that's how I base all of my decisions. Is this going to help us with the educational outcomes of our students? Is it going to help us close the educational gaps? And I know Sheriff Corpus was speaking about, I'm in another institution that has caused harm. We've done a lot of great things, but we've also caused harm through some of our policies and practices, and disproportionately to certain communities and different races and cultures. And so really, that has been the thing that I focused on the most in my school board role, is how do we take a system that was designed to do some of the harm that I'm talking about and transform it into something that sets students, when they leave our doors, they're ready to be members of society that can advocate and take care of themselves. And that is a huge task that comes with the personal responsibility on myself to educate, professional development, read and learn as much as I can, because I am the friction. The board is the friction before the decisions. We are the thing that tests all the decisions and the proposals and the recommendations that are given to us from our administration. And before they get put into practice, is this something worthy of our students? Is this something that when we're spending money How is this going to help us close educational gaps? How is this going to help us ensure that when the students leave with that the diploma has meaning? It prepares them to go to either if they want to go to college or whatever career that they want to go to, that when they vote, they're able to discern from what they hear on social media versus how do you learn something, research something. When we're talking about research, how do we impair that and impart that ability in our students, because they're bombarded with information from everywhere all the time. And so keeping that focus of, because it's constant distraction, keeping that as my focus, that is how I gauge what I need to look at, what I need to learn, what I need to research that'll help me make the decisions that I have to make.
Thank you. So we have one question in chat so far. What is your approach when you are running for local office and a community member wants to get you to publicly comment on issues outside of your domain, such as international conflicts? So who wants to take that one on?
I guess I can go first. So when you're running for office, everybody wants you to do something. I mean, when you're running for office and when you're newly elected, that is the person that is the most outreached and talked to. And so to me, it's again, if they're asking you to do something that's taking you away from the core purpose of why you were running, then I don't do anything that takes me away from my core purpose. So, one of the things that we get asked a lot, and like it was brought up for another school district, was the changing of a name. My district is named after someone who raped my ancestors, right? No one wants to change the name more than me. And when I was running for school board, I was inundated with people to change the name of Jefferson, to change the mascot. That is a worthwhile thing, but at the end of the day, is it a distraction from the educational outcomes? It is. So I didn't entertain it. And I disappointed some people, but being in an elected office, you're going to disappoint people. You're going to disappoint friends. People are going to stop being friends with you. But I'm here to serve my students.
Yeah, I mean,
Any
I would just say, be straight with people. If you're not comfortable doing something, don't do it. That's kind of where I'm coming from on it. And I feel like for me, I'm very focused on what the job can get done. And you need to expect from me that I can get that job done. And it's no more complex than that for me. So just be straight with people. If you think that's not a part of your job, and say, that ain't a part of my job, and I'm not making it a part of this campaign. Over.
I would say for me, although I'm an elected official, the office is bipartisan and, it's a distraction. Again, as my fellow panelists have said, and just be straightforward and just say that this is not in your realm of your duties in your service. And I think sometimes it's hard to be honest, but I think then you're not veering away from anything or leaving hope for somebody, because they'll be the community will be persistent with you and they'll keep asking you and keep asking you. So I think the best form here is just, being straightforward and being honest and just taking a stance.
What is it like getting finances for your campaigns? Is that difficult? How do you make that happen?
My father used to say, it's the most demeaning part of running for office is trying to raise the money. I wish I had a magic pill for you to say, oh, this is how you do it. And some people are more comfortable than others. I think the best piece of advice I got was engage people in the sense that this is an investment. Investing in you is an investment in an outcome, not where you'll be on any given issue, but the kind of leader that you want to see in office. And so That's what I've tried. Listen, I'm no miracle worker at it. I work very hard at it, but that's the best advice I got. And I've been asked along the way, you interview with a lot of different people, just as you interview the Democratic Party. There are many different people along the way. And I just hope that when they leave after speaking with me, they at least have some understanding of my approach and the kind of leader I'll be. And that's the best you can hope for. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh my gosh, yes, I'll be with you on every issue. That's not I don't play that game. But I do feel like letting people know that it's an investment in the type of decision maker you'll be is, anyway, it's the area I'm most comfortable with in trying to raise money.
That was probably the hardest for me, is asking people for money. It's uncomfortable, but when people get to know you and get to know the issues that you that you want to raise and that you want to the things that you want to change, then it comes easier. But also, when you are elected, then sticking to your campaign promises is really, really important as well, because it never stops. So I think it's uncomfortable, and you just have to just practice and keep asking, and then get others to ask for you too. So like building your team is really important. So sometimes it helps when you have people that are, really supportive of you, and then they'll ask their neighbor or they'll ask somebody else. So I think that's where it gets, when you start, people start getting to know you and getting to know the issues that you stand for, and the changes that you want to make if you're elected, then I think that then it comes a little easier for people then to want to help you and support you.
I completely agree. It was really hard. And I really had to examine it, and it was a worth issue for myself. I had to tell I'm worthy of this ask. If I'm asking in a way where I sound unsure, I was imparting that to other people. So I had to really put my confidence up, because I've made fundraising calls for people that I believe in with confidence. And then when I was calling for myself, I was sounding unsure. So having that same confidence in myself helped. And then also learning that sometimes you have to ask twice, and a lot of times people have full intention of donating to you and just forget, and you're usually appreciative of that second call. And I really had to, like, you're not bothering people, like, this is part of the campaign, make that second call, make that follow-up call. And it was all in the way I asked, just remembering you had said you were sponsoring. I just want to kindly follow up how important it is to me, how essential every dollar was to my campaign. And most people, the response I got from most people were like, oh my God, absolutely, I'll do it right now. I totally forgot. But it was just getting over that imposter syndrome hump that I have for myself, and really leaning into the ask.
What I heard about fundraising a while ago, which really made a lot of sense to me, is that to the right person, a fundraising request is actually a gift, because it's an opportunity for them to live into their values. So, I'm wondering if you've ever been kind of surprised by an issue. You're giving a talk and somebody brings up an issue and you've never thought about it. Maybe that's hard to imagine, something you haven't thought of, and all of a sudden you're kind of on the spot. What are you going to do? Has this ever happened to any of the three of you? And how did you respond?
I'll go, yes, all the time. And don't bluff. That's what I say. Have enough respect for your audience not to bluff, and say, tell me a little bit more about it. I'm not sure I understand all the angles. And don't be, it's a rookie move to not say, I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. I remember when I was a young lawyer, it was the same thing. You'd see, like, people would be afraid to ask the judge, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that, because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing, right? But if you leave that courtroom and you don't know what went on, that's worse. So I feel like it's way worse to not ask. So just ask in a way like, you're I don't know. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, I guess. So if you just ask in a way that's like, I'm not totally clear on what you're getting at, I think that's fair. You know, we don't know everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say, is that we all have this instinct to want to help someone, and when someone asks you a question, you want to give them the answer. And I really had to lean into saying, I don't know. Let me get back to you. Because if you give the wrong, people remember everything you say, especially if you're an elected official, they remember it verbatim. And if you are wrong, it could come back and haunt you in other ways. So if I'm not completely clear, or if I'm just completely blindsided for something about something, I have to really, like, it's okay to just tell them, I don't know, I'll find out, I'll get back to you.
I would just add that, you know, being comfortable saying that, you know, you just don't know. But then following through is the most important part as well. And contacting, you know, either the individual or the group that is asking that of you. And, because they'll hold you to it, and then it will come back tenfold on you. So the follow through is just as important as being confident in saying that I don't know, I don't have the answer right now, but I will get back to you. And then taking the time to address, you know, do your research and then address the issue, is really important as well.
Another question I have is what if you've taken a position and then you find out it's not working so well? So what do you do? You know, maybe there's something you haven't thought of, or there's issues that came up. How do you handle that, of trying to, I guess, change your position after it's already out there?
Well, I mean, I think it's okay to pivot as long as you've got some reasoning behind it. You may disappoint somebody who is at one side of it, but it's always served me very well when I say, well, here was my thinking, and this was my logic behind it. And we had a bill come in the assembly. I'll just give you one quick anecdote. And this was a bill about if you were laid off by a Starbucks within the next 10 miles, and if they were looking to hire, they would have had to hire the people that got laid off at the closing Starbucks. Sounds great, doesn't it? But my feeling was, what about the person that was, and by the way, if you were a supervisor, likewise, they had to hire you as a supervisor. So my feeling was, what if you were at the Starbucks that didn't close, you put in your 3 years, you were a single mom who was looking to move up to manager, and you were ready to move up to manager. Should you get the bump because of a manager that worked at the other Starbucks? It was a tough call. And so when I brought it up in committee, the author of the bill, you know, she was very receptive. And then later on, she came up and told me that she actually had amended the bill to make way for the person that had put in their time at the original Starbucks, because it was her time to move up, or his time to move up, whatever it might be. So in any event, sometimes things on the face, like you go to come right out of the gate, of course I'm going to support that. That Starbucks closed, yeah, you've got it. The other ones have to pick up the slack. But then things get nuanced and they get tricky. And I didn't want to vote no on the bill, but she was kind enough to, after my questioning, she came up, she's like, I'm going to change that bill. So I really appreciated that. So it wasn't an abandoning a thought, but it was maybe putting it fully through the grist. And then sometimes it has to be tweaked. You don't always have to abandon, you can tweak too.
Anybody else had to change position?
Sure. In our school district, we have a student counterpart. For every trustee, we have a student trustee. Student trustees change my mind all the time because they are on the ground, they're our customer, and I will have an opinion as an adult about how something should be, or how a policy. And the students have learned that their vocal advocacy does make change, so they do speak up. And our student trustees are probably contacted by students more than we are contacted by adults. When something is on our board that the students disagree with, they're really vocal. And so there's been a couple of policy procedures changes that we wanted to put into place, or that we didn't put into place, that the students have changed our mind about. And again, it's just being communicative. We communicate to our community, our parents, but also our students so that they understand the why behind my decisions. And then it helps us move forward together.
Thank you.
I could just speak for myself. I think, perception sometimes. So because I'm, I've worked in law enforcement, there's this assumption that I'm like, always pro gun. And so sometimes we do these gun buybacks, and boy, you should see the kind of the very strong opinions about it doesn't work. It's, a crock of, what are you doing? And, but I believe that, these gun buybacks keep our communities safer, because a lot of times people have these weapons in their homes that, maybe were passed down by, a grandfather or somebody that was in the military previously. And they're unsafe because people don't use them. And sometimes they're not locked up properly. And, there's a chance that if somebody were to break into that home, then they could get their hands on that weapon. But I think explaining, what your position is, and because you're not always going to see every single side of it. But I think, having that explanation out there and as to why they work, and just knowing that you're going to have some opposition in everything that you do, but it's for the greater good of the community and keeping the community safe.
I'm wondering, we're running out of time here. I'm wondering if the three of you have any last words you want to say on this topic or something else.
Just thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone. And again, if you believe in it and you just have that grit and have that fight. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either.
I would just leave you to go get them.
Okay. All right. Well, a big thank you to the panelists for coming and sharing their wisdom and their experience with us. Thank you so much, the three of you. Thank you. And I also want to thank our audience for coming to our 7 sessions. This is the last session. The Zoom videos will be made available in the coming days, but be on the lookout for a link to the video library. The videos will also be available on the San Mateo and Santa Clara County Democratic websites. If you responded to Robert's email, he also put his email address in the chat. So if you would like to have, your certificate, respond to his email address, either from chat or the email he sent out. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.